Sitaram. Today we'll be exploring a topic that's not been often seen in Ramayana. I'm not sure about other epics or other literature of the world, but actually, in fact, Virodha Bhava, if we look at it, is not something that while it's not a predominant bhava, and it's something that we need to take a deeper look at to understand, because at a peripheral layer it may seem very contradictory to the idea of bhakti or how we approach an object of devotion. But if we take a closer look at it, Virodha Bhava can be something greater. Today, as we'll be exploring a different dimension of Virodha Bhakti, something more specific to how Rama interacts with his Virodhas. So, we'll be taking a look at that today. So, I like to lay out our presentation today. We'll be starting with what is traditionally known as Virodha Bhakti, Virodha Bhava, and what Rama takes as Virodha Bhava. And then three dimensions of Rama that I would like to explore in today's PPT. First is Rama as a warrior, then Rama the enigma. So, enigma means a mystery or something that's difficult to understand. And then Rama the life maker, the one who makes a life purposeful or meaningful. And then a summary. What can we take away from this Virodha Bhava? Not just exploring and understanding how Rama interacted with his enemies, but how does that apply in our life? So let's begin. So, what is Virodha Bhava? So, as we saw, Sakya Bhava, Dasya Bhava, these are modes of worship. These are ways that people feel more connected to their object of worship. In that way, for some people, competing with their object of worship or even doubting the object of worship is not only a reflection of their personality, but how they feel closer to God. So, as Lord Krishna says, Ye yatamam prapadyante tamstateva bhajamyaham. However, people approach me, in that way I'm ready to accept them. So, because of his multifold personality, God is ready to take people in the way that they feel closer to him. So, that's what we see as Virodha Bhava generally. But the Virodha Bhava we'll be exploring today is a little bit different. As we go through the steps, as Valmiki takes us through the kandams, we'll be seeing the evolution of how Rama doesn't change, but how we perceive the Rama that appears to us in each kanda. So the first topic is Rama the warrior. So just imagine that you were completely unaware about Hinduism and you were completely out of the fold. You didn't know anything about Ramayanam or Rama. I'll be reading a few statements that come in Valmiki Ramayana. Imagine you were reading it like you were reading a storybook. How would you feel about these statements? These are just a few. So the first one is Valmiki says that Rama is undefeatable even by celestials and demons. Apradrishyascha sangrame kruddairapi surasuraihi. Then Sumitra says that all warriors fall prey to the path of Rama's arrows. Sthasyanti pati Ramasya satanapi vadishyati. Then the rishis of Dandaka forest, suddenly Rama enters a forest, and all the people there suddenly say, the rishis come up to him. People who are described as being in great tapas, who Rama has never met before, they come up to him and they start saying, Paripalayana sarvan rakshasebhyo nripatmaja. You have to rescue us from all the rakshasas. Paratatva gatirvira prithvivyam nopapadyate. There's no greater refuge in the world than you. And then Lakshmana says that to Sita in Aranyakandam, that Avadya samare Ramaha. Rama can never be killed in battle by anyone. So these are just a few statements. There are countless statements like this in Ramayana, not just by his own devotees, but different people, people who are on the opposing team, and also those who don't know him. So if you didn't know anything about Rama, or you had no connection to Hinduism, how would you feel about statements like this? It seems like tall claims about someone who, until now, if you've been reading through Ayodhya Kandam, we only hear about his valor and bravery. We never see him in action or what he's doing. But then we get towards, in Aranyakandam, we get to the Kara and Rama's battle. So, what do we derive from the battle? In a peripheral read, what we might understand is that Rama, the reputation that precedes him, that all these people were talking about so long, he has proved it right. He's defeated 14,000 Rakshasas in just the span of 1.5 hours. So peripherally, you might, for someone who has no connection to it, they might understand Rama to be one of these kind of warriors, a mythological figure who's joins the ranks amongst these kind of kings. But if you look closer into Ramayana, as not just in reading in between the words, but by multiple readings of Ramayana, Anna always says that, every time you read Ramayana, you explore new things and you understand deeper layers of Ramayana. So, as you read in between the words, when Rama is talking to Kara, is a very interesting conversation. What he says is, Papam macharatam ghoram lokasya priya ichatam aham azatido ragnya pranan hantum nishachara. Whoever wanders this earth harming the innocent who is committing sins, it's against them that I have my enmity and I'm fighting those kind of people. And then earlier, Rama mentions to Sita when she doubts his vow towards the rishis. Rama says there that Kshatriyo dharyate chapaha nartha shabdo bhavetiti. The only reason why Kshatriyas carry their bow and their weapons is to make sure that the innocent don't cry out. So these kind of statements, we might ignore them in passing. But then as we go further into Ramayana and we understand Rama more, we see that Rama has some sort of deeper purpose behind his wars. He's not just some warrior who's powerful and victorious. So Rama touches on this, but then Kara continues his usual blabber. So Rama doesn't find him an object worthy of explaining his deeper sense. So that's all that we see really in the conversation between Kara and Rama. Next, we move on to the sort of confusing dimension of Rama. So, up till this point, we've seen Rama in Ayodhya Kanda, who's so soft, who's ready to do anything for his father, who says that, who gives so much importance to his wife, to his brother, to his friends. This kind of soft and Rama, who is described by Valmiki in the same way, is also this powerful and victorious warrior who's able to defeat 14,000 people in just the span of 1.5 hours. And he possesses all these great traits. What is going on here? Like, what do we for someone who has never read Ramayana? At this point, it's easy to take Rama for granted because we've been hearing about him for years. So, for someone who doesn't know who Rama is, at this point, it's a mystery because he's has all these opposing personalities. So, who is Rama? On one hand, Valmiki says that Rama is the embodiment of peace and he dislikes the warrior nature. He says that. And then in another place, Rama says that Kshatram's dharmam swam bahumanyate. He takes his Kshatriya dharmam as his own, and then his very presence in Yuddha Kandam trembles the earth and causes the beings to feel fearful. What is this? Doesn't make any sense. On one hand, he's saying he hates the warrior nature. On another hand, he's saying he accepts this Kshatriya nature on his own. Throughout all of this, Rama maintains a composure in whenever he goes to battle, going to the extent of inviting anger. This is a very famous statement, Krodham aharayamasa. Rama calls anger to the battle, as if though it were like a weapon or a divine astra he's calling to use in his battle. He calls an emotion. So this is a very peculiar, if we read in between the words, as Shyamji mentioned, the body language is a treasure of Valmiki. In the same way, these sort of words are in between the words, these little statements make a lot of difference in how we perceive the characters in a deeper level. So, what is this? How do we synthesize these two aspects of Rama? It's so confusing. Well, this isn't new to Hinduism. Synthesizing two seemingly opposite personalities can actually be just part of one integral whole. Just as the Rig Veda shows us that the concept of one supreme truth becomes multifold, in the same way, in Ayodhya Kandam, a shloka comes, in the same way that the sun has many rays, but the rays are all part of the sun, in the same way, Rama releases his gunas, which are all a part of him. Though the gunas, on one hand, protecting the innocent is his guna, at the same time, maintaining the peace and going on the himsa path is also a part of his dharma. So, gunair viruruche ramaha deepta surya ivamshubihi. In the same way that the sun is multifold, at the same time one, Rama represents this kind of personality. If we see Rama in this light, these seemingly contrast personalities and opposing aspects of his character are synthesized. Here we get to the final stage of how we understand Rama as he is. Rama, the life maker. He is neither a mystery nor is he a great warrior, and no, none of these words can contain Rama. If we have to sum him up perfectly, he's a life maker. We can see this perfectly in the relationship with Ravana. So, the first stage with Ravana is his priority is peace. Rama is ready to accept Ravana if he mends his way. During Vibhishana Sharanagati, we see that he's ready to accept even Ravana. And in Ayodhya Kanda, the people, when Dashratha asks, why do you want Rama as the king? They say that Nasya Krodha Prasadascha Nirattosti Kadachana. His anger is never in vain, it's never fruitless. His laser sharp focus is revealed by the men of insight. So the rishis in the forest are able to understand that Rama is coming here for a purpose. It's not just that he came and he got enmity with the Rakshasas and he killed them, or he's trying to conquer Dandaka forest, or he's some great emperor waging war with everyone. There's something greater to his purpose. And Rama carries the weightage of the dharma that he represents. The second step is when Rama realized that Ravana is not going to change. Arise, awake, and stop not till the goal is reached, said Swami Vivekananda. Rama embodies that. When Ravana couldn't open his heart to Dharma, and he fell prey to his own, to his ego that he cherishes, he says that Nanamayam to Kasya Chitta. I will never do namaskara to Rama or anyone in this world because that's my personality. So he's decided who he is. Once he's left no room in his heart to open up to Rama, Rama decides that he will employ any method necessary to destroy the Dharma. So Rama's missiles that he uses against Ravana seem to emanate from his self. In fact, there's a shlokam for that. I'm not sure the shlokam, but I've given it as a reference here. So if we look through the dialogue between Rama and Ravana, there's not a single word in there that reflects his personal vengeance against Ravana. For example, when Kara or Ravana are fighting with someone else or they're abusing Rama, when they're insulting him, they say claimless and baseless things against him just to incite his anger and his fury. But if you see, every word that Rama uses against Ravana is merely the actions that he's committed. The one who stole people's wives, or the one who causes misery to rishis. So Rama only hates the part of Ravana that commits those adharmic deeds. He doesn't hate Ravana as a person. This is a very subtle detail of Ravana that we can only understand if you start to read in between the words. So in Tamil, திட்டும்போது சொல்லுவான் நாயே, இல்ல we use animals as abusive words, or we say something personal about them which has no connection to the enmity which we have with them. We'll target some other weakness in their life or some part of their life which we know that they are insecure about but has nothing to do with us. But the sukshma of Rama's way of dealing with his enemies is he only targets the parts of Ravana that affected him, number one, and number two, that reflect his bad character. So this is a very important and very deep sort of understanding that we can derive from the conversation between, in Kara and Rama's conversation, we can't see that too much because it's, first of all, it's a little short, and secondly, Kara is not up to Rama's caliber. But as we go deeper into Rama and Ravana's yuddha, there we can see this sort of conversation between Rama and Ravana. Stage 3. You might think that now Rama is, first he said that peace is his priority. He was ready to accept Ravana. Now he has to kill Ravana. He waged such a war that the beings trembled on the earth. This war that happened in Lanka was so ferocious, and Rama showed a side of him that no one had seen before. So now we have to synthesize these two once more. This comes to stage 3. Never lose sight of who you are. When Vibhishana refuses to perform the funeral rites, Rama says that enmity ends with death. So the person he hated this long, the one who had kidnapped his wife, the most beloved wife, Anna always says that no hero of any epic has cried like Rama has cried for his wife. Such a man who loved his wife so much, he should have so much hatred against that person. But Rama says that enmity ends with death when Vibhishana refuses to perform those funeral rites. As Rama's work sprung from internal peace, he had no bitterness in his heart for his foe. The work was done. According to Rama, the task was accomplished, and he had nothing left to say about Ravana. Even when consoling Vibhishana, he says that he tries to focus on the positive qualities of Ravana. Not that there are many, but he tries his best, and he says that Ravana was a great warrior and that he will attain the stature of warriors as they do. So In this way, we can see that Rama is not, you can never define him as one thing. Rama is a warrior. Yes, he's a warrior, but he's so much more. Rama is a kingmaker. Yes, defines the laws, as we see when he talks with Vali. We can see how he makes the laws and how he is so knowledgeable about lawmaking and politics. Rama is a friend, as we see in the Sakya Bhava. Yes, he's a friend, but he's still more than that. Rama is a Ekadara Vratan. Yes, Rama is Ekadara Vratan, but anything that you continue saying about Rama, it's not enough to contain his personality. As we move on and we see more and more, Rama's true nature and his goals are reflected between the words of Ramayana. So, this sort of angle of Rama can only be accessed if you're ready to see him not just as a warrior and a kingmaker, but as his holistic and overall personality, as a guiding force and the very embodiment of Dharma itself, as Maricha says in Aranyakandam, Ramo Vigravan Dharmaha. So, Vigravan means not just Dharma is what one part of him, or it's something that guides him in life. He's the very embodiment of Dharma itself. So, in that way, he's able to encompass all the tools and all the personality aspects that contribute towards Dharma. To summarize, I would like to say this is not the Virodha Bhava that we are familiar with. As we saw earlier, we saw two sorts of Virodha Bhava. One is the Virodha, the enemies see Rama and they're so impressed with him that they're able to reflect his qualities. The second is the Virodha Bhava, where you compete with your object of desire, or you feel that sort of doubts towards him, and you want to, and that sort of way brings you closer towards Rama. But this Virodha Bhava is something different. How does Rama perceive his enemies? How does he look towards them? So here Rama speaks, what can we take away from this? Rama speaks to something of a greater cause, not to weigh oneself down with personal hatred and contempt, but to do whatever is necessary to establish Dharma. As Krishna says in the Gita, Yajñātāt karmanonyatra lokoyam karma bandhanaha tadartham karma kaunteya mukta sangas samachara. That's the most important part of the shlokam. Mukta sangas samachara. Don't take whatever you have against whatever work you're engaged in, especially when it concerns enemies. Don't weigh yourself down with your personal hatred for them. Work for the cause of Dharma. When that is accomplished, as Rama says, Varanantani Vairani Nivrittam na Prayojanam. The enmity ends with death. Or in the case of work, of course, as a Kshatriya, he talks about death. But in our life, we can understand it as the need for that enmity ends, that's when our enmity should also end. And that is the Virodha Bhava that Rama shows us in Ramayana, and that sort of Virodha Bhava we need to reflect in our lives. Sitaram.
Sitaram, coming back to the inimical conversations in Ramayana, I think you briefly touched upon the Kara aspect. There is also a long segment which happens of Rama's conversation with Ravana at different points of time in the Yuddha. So, do you think there is something more psychological in these conversations also? I mean, one part is he is anyway focused on the dharmic aspect. That is what he is isolating. He doesn't look at Ravana's other aspects when he is taking on Ravana. It is more the adharmic aspect what is punishing. But from a transactional perspective, why do these conversations happen? Are there something more psychologically which impacts either of them? Have you seen it from that aspect?
I would see this in there are two ways I think you can look at this. One is his personal psychological state. You could take it as that and the way he interacted, or using psychology as a war tactic. I think you could see these in two ways. One is, I would say, how the majority of Rakshasas spoke towards, especially Ravana. More than Kara, I would say Ravana, especially at his later stages after his first defeat, the psychological effect it had on him, the humiliation of being defeated and this sort of thing. So the way he speaks towards Rama could come more rather than, okay, I think we can tackle it the other way first. So using it as a war tactic, I would say that's how people like Hanuman and Rama used, because as Anna said, they had personal reverence for their heroism. So using this as a method, as in the context of Yuddha Kandam, insulting them before the war happens, or this sort of conversation, it's a way to demoralize them or to bring down their confidence in that sort of way. We can see the way that Rama speaks could perhaps reflect that sort of personality. But the way that Ravana speaks, especially at later stages, to me reflects an outburst of anger rather than a tactic to demoralize Rama. Because at that point, he had already seen the capacity of Rama. So rather than, I mean, he seems too intelligent to, with someone of that stature, to use this as a tactic against him. Rather than that, I would say Ravana saw this as an outburst of anger, the insults that he, which is reflected in what all he says about Rama. So I think I see it in that way.
Yeah, I mean, this is something which we see at highest levels also. I mean, it could be mind games, is what, I mean, even at the championships or even at a final level. Finally, it is about the mental makeup that particular day on how they are. So, very clearly, I think 2-3 areas where when he speaks to Kara or even to Ravana, if you look at Rama speaking to Ravana saying, okay, after your death, even eagles won't touch you. I mean, I am making sure that that is going to happen today. I think very clearly there is a outburst of anger. There is an emotional mind game at play. The other angle, which I mean, I thought might also help us here is the adharmic aspects when he is highlighting even during these conversations are actually morale boosters for Rama himself. Whenever he talks about, in fact, in Mahabharata space also, we also hear this famous thing where I think somebody in Kauravas, they talk about, we are not worried about the strength of, say, Bhima or the valor of Arjuna, but it is the tolerance and the patience of Dharmaputra is what is more dangerous. So, very similarly, if you look at Rama, he's also been holding on to a certain amount of those anger spaces over a period of time. And he tries to use those spaces of the adharmic nature, what has been inflicted on him, to also boost his own valor. Which is whenever there are times which is slightly low, I think Valmiki also talks about Rama is now becoming very angry. And after that, you will see one bout of very vigorous kind of battle. After that, there will be this vigorous kind of words also.
So you mentioned that the point of enmity is not personal, but it is about establishing dharma, which is fair. But you also said, the act that, I mean, whatever we are doing against our enemy ends the moment the need for it ends. So, for example, if Ravana had said, now he did do a crime, that is, you cannot go back and erase it. He kidnapped Sita, tortured her for 10 months. Now, after all this, if he comes back and says, I am sorry, Rama is saying he's ready to take him back. And perhaps in this context, Rama is willing to forgive, Sita is willing to forgive. But in some sense, this contradicts the way our judicial systems work today. Suppose there is a criminal, an ISIS criminal. He's done a lot of terrorist acts, and finally, after evading, our government for very long, he's been captured. He's been put in. Everyone is rejoicing. He's probably 30, lifelong prison. Now, 20 years down the lane, he's had a change of mind. He sat in the prison. He's introspected. He's become a different man. When he comes out, he will not be a terrorist anymore. And there are cases like this because criminals are always given psychological counseling, and there are people who change. Would you say it is fair to say he's changed? There is no need to punish him anymore, and so we can get him out.
Okay, a very interesting question. Again, I feel there are two ways to look at this. One is from a lawmaker judicial perspective. One is from a personal emotional connection with the person, with the victim or whatever's going on. If we take the example of Rama, he says he's ready to forgive Vibhishna. Why does he say that? I mean, he's ready to forgive Ravana. Why is he saying that? Because he already knows that he hasn't asked Sita. He knows that Sita has already said that. So, on a personal level, when Rama is making decisions as a judicial maker or a lawmaker that affects the society, he understands that you have to take into consideration the personal or emotional, while it's not explicitly written in Ramayana, without knowing that Sita would not have been been okay with Ravana being reformed. For example, if something happens personally to a family member, it might be easy for you to forgive, but for that person, it might carry, as you mentioned in your example. So, when you're looking for, in Rama's case, he ended up being a combiner of both. He ended up being the victim of the personal experience and the lawmaker. In today's perspective, that's usually not the case. The person who decides the duration of the punishment or the severity of the punishment is different, and they have to act according to what is considered the norm in the society or what is established. Because see, all sins are sins. Everything that is wrong is wrong, but for the purposes of society to function, we have to understand the severity of punishments and grade them accordingly. As we grade good people, everyone is good, but there are people who are better than others intrinsically. So as we have to do this sort of artificial grading for society to function, in that way, from a judicial perspective, while personal experiences may affect a person's decision, you also have to take into account the larger picture at a whole. And it's easy to say that someone is affected by this. I know it's from both perspectives. It's hard because from a personal perspective, it's easy for someone to sit in a courtroom and make a decision. At the same time, for the person in the courtroom, it's easy to say that I was personally affected by this, or I feel. When feelings come into account, it's harder for someone who has to look at the broader perspective to make decisions based on each personal experience. While it may seem impersonal, they have to look at it from a broader perspective. So I feel that in the not in the case of Ramayana, because in this place both the personal connection and the overall look into it is connected. But in real life, while this may seem more harsher, this sort of outlook on enmity, or how much someone deserves something, how much punishments you should give someone, this could, according to me, this has more positive benefits than negative. So I would say, at a broader outlook, impersonality is required, like a more broader outlook on it.
If we take the Mahabharata, after the insult that Draupadi goes through, she asks for vengeance against, to Bhimasena, and even to Krishna, saying, "I was insulted. Why were they all sitting and waiting?" And here the topic, even though you can say, he never changed till the end of the day, Duryodhana and group, so he was killed. But is it not fair that Draupadi asked for vengeance? Because she was insulted, and the past crime does count. I mean, it is great that Rama and Sita were willing to go ahead and forgive, but is it always necessary that punishment is given for the present crime and not, present or future crime and not for the past crime? Here it is not a question of personal experiences or impersonal experiences, but more about past crime versus present and future crime.
What is the present and future crime in the case
Present
of
and
Duryodhana?
Yeah, so present crime is something, you're doing it now. Ravana, at the moment, he's a criminal, he's not willing to give Sita back. Or, even if that situation is gone, you leave him scot free, he will probably go and do this to somebody else. So he's still a criminal. But the past crime is the crimes were done in the past, you've changed now. There is nothing criminal about a person in the present or future.
I think that's when we looked into, the shlokam, Charma shlokam of Ramayana, Mitra Bhavena Sampraptam. So Mitra Bhavena, I feel, is an important aspect here. So we say dosho yadyapi tasasyat. So we can easily take Ravana also included in this. He has a fault, but he's coming and saying sorry. Rama saying he'll accept him. Is the Mitra Bhavan there? So Mitra Bhavam, in the context of Upanyasas, we explain what Mitra Bhava is. But in this particular context, I would like to take it as, the scope for reform, or the extent to which someone is ready to change, or on the basis of that only you can make these sort of decisions. To generalize it overall, yes, it is wrong, because in the case of Draupadi, as you said, a crime has been committed. You can say that the Duryodhana never changed. But even if he did change, like Anna said, that Kakasura received a certain amount of punishment. But is Duryodhana, if he had asked forgiveness, would he be more likely to change again? Yes, because as we see, that he says he knows dharma, but he's not interested in it. So this sort of reflections of someone's character can help us look deeper into what is their true nature. So when you look, I'd say that, rather than just taking on face value of what someone says, whether they've reformed or not, I don't know how applicable this is on a judicial scale or larger scale. In terms of kavyas, I'm talking that the true nature or a core nature of a person, if it truly has changed, Hinduism has always had that openness to accept those sort of people, and the room for reform, as we've seen in many stories, not just restricted to Ramayana and Mahabharata, other stories in Hinduism. So I would say that more than words, the true nature of someone is what matters, and the ability to dive into that.
I want to add one more little thing in it. Here, and the punishment itself is forgiving itself is a punishment for Ravana, I think, because after getting the forgiveness from Rama and living as a humble down person is more of a punishment than being killed. So that is the reason probably Rama is ready to even forgive him. Because dying is once for all, he will leave this spot. But he was forgiven, he has to live there, he has to give up everything. As Anna said, probably he will be given a small punishment of taking away Lanka Rajya or something from him. He will be made an ordinary person. For such persons, this kind of forgiving itself is a more of a punishment. Here, his punishment methods are subtler, I think.
And
Because for Vali, he hadn't even given such kind of choice at all. Choice at all. But for Ravana, he had given.
Duryodhana, Duryodhana says to Yudhishthira, I will give you the kingdom and go to the forest. I hand over to you. May you rule. This is what he says. You know, Yudhishthira is the embodiment of tolerance, probably more, definitely more tolerant than Rama. Okay, such a kind of person. Of course, Krishna is also standing there. That Yudhishthira says, I don't see Arjavam in your words. Okay. Mitra Bhava is not found. Mitra Vak is there. Your words are fine, but your heart, I don't see there this Arjavam. Okay. After the death of all elders and friends like Karna, after giving up all of them, well, you are all alone. You are telling that you would give the kingdom and go back. And that Arjavam I don't find in you. If you are in forest, still you will be troubling us. Therefore, we have to end the war. Therefore, Mitra Bhava means Mitra Bhava. Mitra Bhava is important here. It's not Mitra Vak or an enaction of Mitra Maitri. So this example itself is enough. A Yudhishthira example, that too in front of Krishna, that itself is enough that the word Mitra Bhava means only Mitra Bhavam. If it comes, if that Mitra Bhava comes, Yudhishthira cannot tell like that. Rama also cannot tell like that. We also cannot tell it because we are followers of Rama.
Sitaram. How do you look at Lakshmana in the same lens of valor as well as Virod?
in the aspect of Lakshmana, as we can see, popularly Lakshmana is known for his angry personality in the world. But if we actually look in Ramayana, Lakshmana, while he does possess a sort of haughty disposition at times, his anger, while it may seem more chaotic than Rama's, his anger is also only directed and reflected in the same manner that Rama shows his. While it may outwardly appear more, as I said, chaotic, so it may not be in the composed or directed method through which Rama shows the anger. The anger at its core is only for those adharmic deeds. Wherever Lakshmana we see getting angry, it doesn't reflect how he has personal vengeance against that person. Only either the crimes they committed against his brother or how he feels about the adharmic deeds that they've committed. So I would say that while the methods are different, the intent behind his Virodha Bhava is exactly the same as Rama.
When Hanuman said to Sita Devi that I'll take you to Rama, why did Sita say no?
So, few reasons for that. The main reason being that due to Sita's personal vow of chastity, she won't touch another man, so she refused to go with Hanuman. Other than that, she says a few reasons that she's scared that while crossing the ocean, she may fall into while crossing on Hanuman's back, she may fall into the ocean. But the predominant reason, at least what we have to take to reflect Sita's character, is that she refuses to touch another man. And another main point is Tattasya Sadrisham Bhavet. So she believes that Rama's honor lies in him coming and rescuing her herself. So these are the two main points why Sita didn't come with Hanuman.
Yeah.
I think your last point is the first point.
Sahana ji asked that if there are terrorists who claim claims and they claim to be good people after 20 years, and when we see Ramayana, which is very old and which is in Treta Yuga, the motive of the time was not making crimes. There are very few people like Ravana who did these crimes, and Rama came to eliminate these people. And nowadays there are many people who do crimes like this. And Sahana ji told that after 20 years when he changes his mind. So there are victims who had gone through all of the sufferings which the terrorist or the crime maker has made, and so uh, they have gone through a lot. So we can't say that he has changed his mind, knowing the people know which is wrong and right. So they make these things, and there is no use of like I want to change after 20 years. And nowadays the population is so high that like Krishna ji told, today's judicial world is changing. The laws have been changed. It is like if you leave one person, there will be thousands of person telling the same reason to uh, uh, try these things. Like there will be another man who will do all these things knowingly that I will no matter what I do after 20 years I will get released. I can make another thing. There will be people coming in again and again. And the first thing in the talk was like Rama managed his psychological way of tackling people, and he managed it very well. And really, to add on it, one thing is that see Ravana outbursts his anger at last, but he tells unnecessary things that won't make any use. See, for like not only Rama, for any great intellectual people who get like these unnecessary blabbers, know that there it is no use for them. See, if I say something, some great man an idiot, he is not. He knows that he is not an idiot, which is no use. But when Rama is telling Ravana that what and all mistakes he have done, will poke him more. Like the mistakes made, which is told out, will poke them more than the unnecessary talks.
When you were answering that, you mentioned when Rama was willing to forgive Ravana, that Rama is the victim there. Rama is also kind of the executioner in a sense. There, since both Rama and Sita were willing to forgive Ravana, if Ravana had a change of heart, it's okay. This is how I understood what you said. So, would you be okay? So, are you saying that if the victim feels that the person who's done the crime or the person who's done the wrong to them should be forgiven, does that mean that they can be forgiven, I guess?
I don't think any case is as black and white as that. I took the example of Rama and Sita as that because of the grandeur of their character. In real life, if we're talking about things in certain aspects, victims may not realize the extent to which they have suffered. That's also possible in some cases. So it's not as simple as just stamping a case as if the victim is okay, then everything's fine. It's forgiven like that. But there are things. I think you have to look at it from all angles, and at some point, someone has to come to a decision. He said that people, if you leave one person, you can leave many. Yes, that is true in aspect, but there have been war crimes throughout history. After World War II, repatriations were made to the Jews, but how much ever you compensate, people who are not in that community cannot understand what they went through, and they cannot feel the extent to which they have suffered. So it's very simple to say that we've delivered the best justice as we can, or you can speak from the other aspect as well and say that not enough has been done, more justice has to be given. Neither of these statements take into consideration the realities of any circumstance in which laws have to be passed or a decision has to be taken. As at the end of the day, Anna said, we're all humans, we have flaws. So at the end of the day, taking into account what is dharma and acting as best as we can see in that method is the only way we can deliver justice. is what I feel. And one aspect I feel that we forgot to mention is, in the case of Vali, it was just a single death. It wasn't a huge battle. In the case of Ravana changing, it could prevent the deaths of numerous Rakshasas. So I feel that's also an important point to take into consideration.
Sitaram, you said the point about Mukta Sangha Samachara, the fact that emotions should not, or our personal vengeances should not come into play when we are considering enmity. Is it as black and white is what I'd like to ask. Sometimes this may not be the best example, but we can see this is not exactly an example of enmity, but we could consider it as an enmity inside friendship, a small face of enmity inside friendship. The time when Sugriva has a lapse and he does not come to fulfill his promise to Rama, we can see actually that Rama first instigates Lakshmana, and though Rama as a man he is balanced and he knows how to handle Sugriva, Lakshmana's emotion or Lakshmana's anger towards Sugriva is mainly that he has wronged Rama in this case. So here, Lakshmana's personal emotion is actually affecting him to a certain extent. And we can see that Rama is slightly instigating on that and then calming it down and then sending Lakshmana. So here, using that personal emotion does fulfill some of the work here, right? So is it as black and white as you should not completely attach yourself to the to the deed in order to?
So, how we talked about invoking anger as an emotion to use in battle? You could say that someone who is naturally angry is more advantageous in battle because they already have that at their disposal. It comes very easily to them. If you look at it in that way, then some people will be naturally disposed and more capable with according to their, you could call them imbalances. I'm not saying that, they're just human flaws or traits. Some traits, while they may be negative in excess, they may be proven useful in certain. So we saw Ravana's anger and his tapas, which was being used for a adharmic purpose, but his drive and his focus did fuel him in a way that, even though it was an adharmic deed, that personality trait can help him. So we can see that anything can be used for any purpose. It can be used for a good or a bad purpose. In the same way, anger, yes, you're right in a way that it can appear that Rama was instigating Lakshmana. But I think the quality of a good leader is knowing the different, Swadosha Paradosha, with Valmiki says in the start of Ayodhya Kanda. He knows the flaws of his own people and he knows their strengths as well. So you might say he's instigating Lakshmana, but I would say he would, rather than, Lakshmana could have just complained and, he, if it was up to Lakshmana, we never know, he would have started a war with Sugriva straight away. But it's of course hypothetical. But I'm saying the way that Rama channeled that Lakshmana's anger, or the word that you use, instigate, it's a little negative, that's why I'm avoiding it. Channel that anger. I would say that sort of Tamil is or arti kalakinar. That sort of shock that Sugriva needed from Lakshmana. I think that Rama understood that. Because of that tamas that he was in, that sort of manda that during after the rainy season, to break the effect of that, I feel that sort of energy Rama recognized in Lakshmana and it was used correctly. So if we see it's at then we can see we learn good things from shastras and all, but at the end of the day, all things that exist are chittavrittis in yoga. In the same way, anger is a useful tool to accomplish dharma and sort of things. But if you see it at the end of the day, Mukta Sangha Samachara means being devoid of the effect of any emotions, whether it's anger, happiness, even positive emotions that we connotate. So I feel that there are two layers to this. From the extremist aspect, from Paramatma Satya, we can say, yes, this anger is wrong. But from the purposes of what Rama was trying to do, I feel that the anger or what Rama's actions were in there were dharmic.
Another small point to add, you were just saying Swadosha Paradosha Vita. Rama knows the strengths and weaknesses. So could we say that he also knows the strength of Lakshmana, that he would forego this anger as soon as Sugriva gets corrected? That also.
because he knows that the anger might, while, as I said before, he was asking about how does Lakshmana act with Virodha Bhava? In that, I was talking about how Lakshmana is just the same as Rama, while the methods may be different. So he knows that the anger doesn't affect him at a base root level. The anger doesn't consume Lakshmana. Rather, it's more of a chaotic sort of tool that he uses.